This is about what Roe is, what the end results of it being taken away are, and what one of the biggest mainstream information outlets for conservatives and the right wing is talking about. Alrighty. We got to talk about what's going on with Roe v. Wade. There's going to be a good handful of episodes about this because there's a lot of stuff going on and there's a lot of people reacting to this. Today, I'm going to focus my attention on a little bit of news about it from NPR and also one of the ways in which Fox News is reacting to it. Also, just throwing it out there, we do have a new model that is being used at the moment. This one is courtesy of Bon Bon Berry, and hopefully the tracking should be a lot better than normal. I know that there's a bit of an uncanny nature to 3D models before. Hopefully, things are a little better now that we have better tracking installed. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and get into the fan art section. We have this piece from Robotic Kitty. They said the quickest of sketches. For context, this is me and my partner Raz. This is me annoying my partner Raz. Because if there's anybody that can annoy Raz, it's me. But on the exact same type of fan art, we have this one here from Vzeppo, also known as Alpacent. That said, I finally got my Suris and Raz hand-holding fan art. You know, with hand-holding of this caliber, Raz is sure to be pregnant any day now. Also, Booba. I know, right? Booba and ass. Alpacent has drawn much booba and much ass. With all that said, TOS loot content, I know, right? Hand-holding, the lootest of content. As always, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future episode, please consider dropping it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and, trigger warning for anybody who happens to have issues when it comes to, bodily autonomy rights. So, I was looking up stuff where Roe v. Wade is concerned, and I came across this article here from Fox News. Feminists in full-blown panic mode about state of Roe v. Wade. Now, this particular title rings a very specific way to me. This rings the way that, 2016 Skeptic YouTube did, where everybody was just like, aha, let's trigger the feminists. And it's kind of agitating having to, flash back to that.
After hours of oral arguments, the Supreme Court appears set to uphold a Mississippi law that bans abortions after 15 weeks.
Okay, so banning abortion after 15 weeks, not a good thing. A lot of people don't even know they're pregnant at the 15-week mark. I already have trouble with the freaking 21, 23-week setup that we have right now. I believe that even if you grant full personhood to the fetus, there is no point in which a woman should have to give up, or a trans man, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? There's no point in which somebody who has a child in them, I'll call it a child, we'll grant it that. There is no point where you should not be able to say, actually, no, I want my body to be protected. Also, Katini has dropped a tactical nuke. Okay, so for those who don't know, what this means is that for the next hour, all OOs and RRs turn into the fucking terrible words. Nakibri, thank you for redeeming your shit for the wrong goddamn side. Ooh. Solar Galax, fuck you and your ooh. Cherry, you are gonna have to keep some of these in. I'm sorry. It's a part of channel lore. Anyway, just fucking continue with fucking shit.
Setting the stage to at least radically alter Roe's precedent. And at best, yes, to overturn Roe v. Wade.
That's not a good thing, though. The fact that Fox News thinks this is a good thing agitates the crap out of me. With this, what he's basically saying is that they're trying to erode Roe v. Wade. They are trying to slowly take it out of commission, which is not outside of what they've been trying to do for ages, to be honest, but it's not a good thing. Women losing the right to their own bodily autonomy is not a good thing, but they always frame it like it is. Man, if we can just save some more babies, which translates to if we can just control women a little bit more, then this will be a good thing, apparently.
The landmark decision that has led to the abortion of at least 62 million innocent American babies.
And there's the framing. Think of the children. I mean, fuck the women. Think of the children.
Since 1973. A generational genocide of America's unborn.
A fucking genocide? That's not what a genocide is. Women having control over their own bodies is not a fucking genocide. What? The language being used here. It's think of the children, but the children don't even fucking exist.
By the left, as a savior for women, for far too long, Roe v. Wade seemed untouchable. Just 10 years ago, with Obama in the White House and a Supreme Court stacked with pro-choice justices, this day, it felt very far off. Until now, because of the endless efforts of pro-life groups, activists, educators, mothers. Because of major technological advancements that prove that even at the earliest stages of life, as King David wrote in Psalm 193.
I don't need a sermon. Why do we have a sermon here? Why the fuck is there a sermon on the news? Oh my God. Roe v. Wade does not depend on fucking... Roe v. Wade does not care about whether or not it's life or when it's life. That's not how that works. Roe v. Wade at its core is a bill about privacy. Also, if we're going to talk about abortion and King Solomon, let's talk about what the Bible says about abortion in Numbers. It's good if somebody's cheating. It literally gives a recipe for an abortion potion. Let's talk about what happens with King Solomon. You know, King Solomon the Wise, what did he suggest to do when two women were fighting over a baby? When two women were fighting over a baby, he suggested cutting the baby in half and giving one to each of them. Ah, yes, definitely. Let's talk about King Solomon.
For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Why?
Your works are wonderful. I know that full well.
Why are we getting a sermon?
Saw my unformed body. Unformed bodies knit together by God.
Okay.
Not the decision of Planned Parenthood.
It's not the decision of Planned Parenthood. It's the decision of the mother. It's the decision of the person who owns the womb. It's the decision of the person who does not want to have a baby inside them. When he said that, wasn't it just a bluff, though? It doesn't fucking matter. Bexy Mama, I have a question. If I aim a gun at you and I say, do this or I'll shoot you, and it's just a bluff, does it matter that it's a bluff? All that matters is that the gun was aimed. That is functionally the only thing that matters. I don't get to ha-ha psych out of that. I don't get to go, actually, I was never going to shoot. Like, no, your position is going to be, yeah, but you aimed the gun at me, and that was bad. Don't ever fucking do that again. Also, I'm calling the police on you. Not to mention, if we want to talk about this, why is your hat supernatural? Because it's cool. Look, the hat is made of slime, Suris. The hat is made of slime, Suris. It's jelly. If we're going to bring the Bible into this, if that's what we're going to have to do, then let's go ahead and take the honest approach here. If you are to use the Bible for your justification against abortion, you need to accept a couple of premises. Either A, your God would let unborn babies into heaven because they did not get a chance to let Jesus into their heart, and therefore every abortion is actually a soul saved. Or your God would send the unborn to hell, or if you're a Catholic, I guess to limbo. Either way, not good, which would mean that your God is cruel and not befit of worship. Take your pick. You get one or the other. You either get a cruel God, or you get a God who would have the proper mercy to where this isn't actually a goddamn problem. But instead, they're like, no, we have to save them. God says, though, he cares.
And as a culmination, because of Donald Trump appointing 3 strong conservative Supreme Court justices, it's all there.
Because of Donald Trump? No, it was because of fucking Mitch McConnell. No, do not give this to Trump. This is all down to Mitch. Mitch, who stonewalled Obama. Mitch, who fought tooth and nail when we freaking lost our last justice. This is on Mitch, not Trump. But okay.
It had to happen to make this moment possible. And sometimes it's worth taking stock and being grateful for the courage of so many generations before us for so long that made this special moment possible, a moment for life. And despite what the captured corporate media tells you,
the captured corporate media
against what Roe v. Wade protects.
Wait. Despite what the captured corporate media tells you, most people are against what Roe v. Wade protects. Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Let's take a look here. Polling data on Roe v. Wade as of 2019. As of 2019 from the Pew Research Center. Let's go ahead and do this. And he can't sit here and say, the corporate media. Fox, you are the corporate media. That's exactly what you are. Look at your funding. Broad public opposition to Roe v. Wade polls at 34%, 31%, 29%. Like year by year, it gets worse and worse for people who want to overturn Roe v. Wade. 70% of Americans as of 2019, during Donald Trump's presidency, did not want Roe v. Wade overturned. You can't sit here and go, herder, my corporate media. No, literally, we have the data. We have polled the citizens. We know what they want. They don't want your bullshit.
Necessarily realize it. 65% of Americans, according to a Gallup poll in 2018, say abortion in the second trimester should be illegal, even though Roe v. Wade allows it.
According to a Gallup
poll,
wait, hold on. That's not the same thing here. You made the argument that people are against what Roe v. Wade protects, but then you gave a specific example which isn't about that specifically. That's like you saying 100% of Americans, we're gonna poll 100% of Americans, and we're gonna find that 20% of them do not want you to consume cookies. Well, what they actually say is they don't want you to consume too many cookies. They're fine with you eating cookies. They just don't want you to consume, 15 cookies and then the 16th one you stole out of the jar. They don't want that. That's not super healthy. But then you go, no. Look, you oppose cookies. 100% of Americans oppose cookies. Despite the fact that we have, actual data that says that no, 100% of Americans do not oppose cookies. But of those Americans, they each have a dividing line. Some think you should stop at 1, some think you should stop at 27. But because they all have a limit, you just go, no. See, you're against cookies. The only way to not be against cookies is by being okay in all particular states. That's what he's doing here.
Small, loud, angry minority of radical feminists who really support unfettered abortion. And now, today, this week, they're in full-blown panic mode.
Aha, we get to trigger the feminists, everybody.
They're terrified that the states, that we the people, not 9 people in black robes, will soon get a say in determining the all-important question of life, which really should be only answered by God.
No, I'm sorry, but Pegseth, sorry, you're fuckface now. You're fuckface. I'm not a Christian, so I don't think that your God should have a say in what happens in my body. I have friends who are Christians. If they want God to have a say in their body, cool, excellent. They get to do that. I have friends who are polytheists. If they want their gods to have a say in what goes on in their body, cool, they can do that. That's perfectly fine. But I'm not a Christian. I don't give a shit what you think your God says at all. I don't. About my body, my partner's body, anyone's body. I don't. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't affect me. You don't get to determine whether it affects me. If you want to say that it's going to affect me one day when I hypothetically go to hell, sure, why not? Who cares? You can threaten me with your lake of fiery torture some other time. I literally don't care. I care about people who live in the here and now. Also, thank you very much, Solar Galax, for being a jerk and redeeming your points for an uwu. And Red Joker as well for redeeming your points for what is also a forced uwu. Katina, you chose that. As I'm talking about Roe v. Wade, this is the time that you've chosen for me to suffer. Dear God.
And in many states, but unfortunately not all, the genocide of generations could, of the unborn, come to the end. So in their desperation, the far left is trying to discredit members of the conservative Supreme Court for simply being men.
Do any of you men have any eggs or the possibility of carrying a fetus? How dare you talk about what a fetus wants? You have no idea.
When it comes to...
Yeah, so what they're talking about... Okay, look. If you are a Native American and you are in a section of the country that we have roped off so that you can live there, and then the government comes in and says, actually, we're going to need 50% of that right now. Also, Burlingame, thank you for the 100 bits. The fact that you've been on that reservation, the fact that your family has been there for a certain amount of time should carry some weight. That land has been set aside for you. If you guys decide that you want to give that land up, that is on you. But if you decide you don't want to, that's what fucking matters. Likewise, when it comes to a woman's body, the jurisdiction should be hers and hers alone.
This decision, this issue, men don't play a factor. Men aren't being held responsible for having sex.
There's no men mentioned.
To two men, Clarence Thomas and Brett Kavanaugh, who were credibly accused of violating the sanctity of women, you know, both of them got away with it, of course, and got on the court. But having them sort of stand up and sort of soberly argue whether or not women are owned by the state.
What if the husband has the womb and wants to keep the child, yet the wife doesn't? Wouldn't that be the same? Yes, duh. I care about the person whose body's being violated, not the gender of the person. All I care about is that their body's being violated.
It made me feel some kind of way.
Oof, duh. And when it comes to the science, far-left Justice Sonia Sotomayor, the self-described wise Latina.
Did I just catch racism? Did I just catch race? Is that just racism on Fox? That's normal? What am I doing? What am I even saying?
She doesn't want to hear it. Disgustingly comparing babies in the womb to dead people.
In 40% of dead people, who if you touch their feet, the foot will recoil. There are spontaneous acts by dead brain people. So I don't think that a response to by a fetus necessarily proves that there's a sensation of pain or that there's consciousness.
You know, touching the feet of dead people, that's the same as a fetus. That's science to the.
Yes. No. Okay. Yes, that is scientific. You absolute dumb shit. Let me explain it to you. The idea that there can be a response from nerve endings, whether or not there is a brain that is formed to a point where it can perceive and even feel that response, that's what's being talked about here. Kill a cockroach. How long are its legs going to keep on just shaking? A few hours, maybe? It's dead. It's not a living thing, but it's still responding to stimuli. It's still got electrical impulses moving around in it. Yes, it is apt for this particular comparison, because all we are talking about here is the ability for the body, whether unformed or not, to respond to stimuli. That has nothing to do with a brain perceiving the stimuli. That has everything to do with how base fucking nerves work.
The wise Latina. Meanwhile,
he keeps on focusing on this. The wise Latina.
The real Speaker of the House, Comrade Cortez, topped all of this idiocy with a statement of her own, saying on Twitter, quote, "Reminder that Brett Kavanaugh still remains credibly accused of sexual assault on multiple accounts with corroborated details, and this year the FBI admitted it never fully investigated. Yet the court is letting him decide on whether to, get this, legalized forced birth in the U.S. No recusal." Yes, she just referred to not aborting a baby, childbirth, as legalized forced birth.
Yes, because if you do not want a pregnancy and other people tell you you have to carry it, you are being... Now hear me out now. I know that big words are very hard for Fox News to understand. The birth is forced because they did not consent to it. It's forced. The concept that somebody can choose not to have something happen, despite the fact that in most other situations it would be considered completely natural, seems to be completely lost on this person. I sincerely hope that he does not have sexual relations with literally anybody, seeing as the concept of consent has been completely lost on him. Completely lost on him. 21 states are poised to ban or severely restrict abortion if Roe v. Wade gets overturned. I told you, we're not just talking about Fox News. No. We're not just talking about Fox News. We're going to talk about the actual implications of what's going on here. NPR wrote up a pretty good piece about this. We're going to go over it, and I'm going to give my thoughts on it because, well, we're here. When the Supreme Court hands down its decision in the Watch Mississippi case that Fox News was talking about, access to legal abortion could end for more than 100 million Americans, including those living in nearly every southern state and large swaths of the Midwest. 21 states are posed to immediately ban or acutely curtail access to abortions if the Supreme Court chooses to overturn or weaken Roe v. Wade. Which, let I remind you, is a 1973 landmark decision that has been used for fucking ages. At the crux of the legal argument made by the state of Mississippi, who is seeking to overturn Roe, is that the U.S. Constitution is neutral on the matter of abortion, meaning that the power to regulate it should rest in the hands of individual states. I'm going to say right now, I just don't agree with this take. I don't. The right to privacy was the thing that Roe v. Wade, from what I understand, hinged on, and that is the thing that caused it to be deemed constitutional, because Roe v. Wade does not just talk about abortion. It's more than that. It is infinitely more than that. When an issue affects everyone and when the Constitution does not take sides on it, it's supposed to belong to the people, said Mississippi Solicitor General Scott Stewart during Wednesday's oral arguments. Cool. One motherfucker who should shut the fuck up. Anyways, the case is called Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization. If the court's conservative majority agrees, its ruling is expected this summer. So-called trigger laws would take effect and automatically ban or curtail abortion in 12 states. In another 9 states, pre-Roe abortion bans could again become enforceable, and or more recent bans that have been blocked by the courts could take effect. If this ends up being the case, I would hope that everyone, also Crazy Maiden, forcing me to say, ooh, you specifically, I expect to see you, if possible, getting your shit together into a protest and making shit incredibly inconvenient for literally every person everywhere in the goddamn country. Can we get a recap on Roe v. Wade? I'm not familiar enough. It is your right to privacy, specifically right to bodily privacy, which ends up extending into your right to have an abortion. Expect a lot of really blood and riots towards Republicans. So just a quick recap for people who need it, in case they do. Roe v. Wade is the landmark decision on for the United States Supreme Court that ruled that the Constitution of the United States protects a pregnant woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excess government restriction. When it happened, it struck down a lot of different abortion laws that different United States states had, and it prompted an ongoing national debate over what the extent we should allow abortions to be legal for, who should decide the legality, and what methods the Supreme Court should use in constitutional adjudication, and what the role of religious and moral views in the political sphere should be. Roe v. Wade reshaped American politics, divided a lot of the United States into camps that loved abortion and camps that didn't. Or, just people who believe that women should have rights to their own bodies and people who didn't. The opinion of the court at the time, 7 justices formed the majority and joined the opinion that was written by Justice Harry Blackmun. The opinion recited the facts of the case and then dealt with issues of procedure and justiciability before proceeding to the main constitutional issues in the case. The court's opinion first addressed mootness, a legal doctrine which bars American federal courts from hearing cases that have ceased to be live. Under a normal application of the principle, any appeal would become moot because a woman had already given birth to a child and no longer had a pregnancy to abort. The court concluded that the case that they were talking about came with an established exception to the mootness doctrine that allows consideration for cases that are capable of repetition yet evading review. Blackmun noted that pregnancy would normally conclude more quickly than appeal process. If that termination makes a case moot, then pregnancy litigation seldom will survive much beyond the trial stage. Which means that if you try to have a conversation where pregnancy is concerned and an abortion happens, then the case is just fucking moot. After dealing with mootness, though, the court proceeds to the main issue of the case, the constitutionality of Texas's abortion law. The court first surveyed the legal status of this law throughout the history of Roman law and the Anglo-American common law. It also reviewed the developments of medical procedures and technology used in abortions, which had only become reliably safe in the early 20th century. That's kind of important here because safe abortions are, kind of fucking important. Because one of the angles that people would use is that abortions were unsafe or would damage the mother or be, otherwise bad. But once we know that it's safe, certainly safer than a pregnancy in a lot of cases, that comes into factor. After its historical survey, the court introduced the concept of a constitutional right to privacy that was intimated in earlier cases involving parental control over childbearing. These cases were Mayer versus Nebraska, Pierce versus Society of Sisters. Reproductive autonomy with the use of contraception was talked about during another case called Griswold versus Connecticut. Then, with virtually no further explanation of the privacy value, the court ruled that regardless of exactly which of its positions were involved, the United States Constitution guarantees the liberty covered a right to privacy that protected a pregnant woman's decision whether or not to abort a pregnancy. The privacy about what's going on in her own thoughts that lead to the decision to abort is the important bit here. The right of privacy, whether it be founded in the 14th Amendment concept of personal liberty and the restrictions upon state action as we feel it is, or in the 9th Amendment's reservation of the rights of the people, is broad enough to encompass a woman's decision on whether or not to terminate her pregnancy. That is the quote that was used to establish this right to one's privacy. The court then reasoned that outlawing abortions would infringe on a pregnant woman's right to privacy for several reasons. One, having unwanted children would force upon the woman a distressful life and future. It may bring psychological harm to the woman. Caring for the child may tax the mother's physical and mental health. And because there may be distress for all concerned associated and with the unwanted child, therein lies the decision. Now, it should be noted here that the court did reject the notion for the right to privacy to be absolute. It held that the abortion right must be balanced against other interests of the country. It found two government interests that were sufficiently compelling to permit states to impose some limitations on pregnant women's right to choose to have an abortion. First, protecting the mother's health, and second, protecting the life of the fetus. It said that a state may properly assess important interests in safeguarding health and maintaining medical standards, and in protecting potential life. At some point in pregnancy, these respective interests become sufficiently compelling to sustain regulation of the factors that govern the abortion decision. We therefore conclude that the right of personal privacy includes the abortion decision, but that this is not unqualified and must be considered against the important state interests and regulation. This is why we ended up getting the 21/23 week cutoff point. Because this is the point where it is more reasonable to assume that a fetus has signs of viability. And as this is a point where there are more signs of viability, then we have to actually have the medical consensus come in on if it can be saved, if it can be kept. Here's the problem. I am still personally of the opinion that as long as the thing is inside you, you should have the ability to terminate. That's me. That is considered an extreme opinion. I also don't care. I've argued with people in my comments section in the last few days about the Roe v. Wade thing and about right to abortion. They said, well, there's people who've talked about, when should the cutoff point be? And my opinion is while the fetus is in the body, there's my cutoff point, while the fetus is in the body. But let's continue on with the actual article here. Now that we've had a bit of a recap on what Roe v. Wade is, when it happened, why it's considered a right to privacy first and foremost. We have these trigger laws. They are laws that are set in place that cannot function unless Roe v. Wade is taken down. If Roe v. Wade gets taken down, these trigger laws go into effect, and boom, there's not even a conversation had about whether abortions become restricted or banned. They just become de facto or de jure, really, taken, because the stopgap is gone. This is the states' rights bullshit. Remember, every single time somebody talks about the Civil War and says that it was about states' rights, and then you have to talk about states' rights to what? And then they have to kind of shakily agree that it was states' rights to slavery. Same shit here. This should default onto the states. Okay, cool. So that you can do what? Just force more children or force more women into biological slavery? Details of trigger laws vary by state, but all of them become automatic upon the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Most would ban abortion outright with limited exceptions, like medical emergencies or in the case of rape or incest. Interestingly, Texas did not care about cases of rape and incest. Texas did not care. I'm going to put on the tinfoil hat right now and say that there was probably some white supremacists there that realized that it was more likely to keep more white people around if there was more inbreeding. Tinfoil hat off. That was a joke. But also, maybe it's not terribly inaccurate either. Trigger laws are currently in place in Arkansas, Idaho, Kentucky. You can read the list. There's a lot of them. Most were enacted during the Trump administration, after conservative Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh were confirmed to the Supreme Court. So this has been a preemptive planned thing. Go ahead and get these trigger laws set up to guarantee that if they get that first signal, everything can fall apart. Those appointments emboldened Republican-led legislatures to pass abortion bans with the hopes of prompting a more conservative Supreme Court to gut Roe v. Wade, including the Mississippi bill at issue before the court, which would ban abortion after 15 weeks, some 9 weeks before the point of fetal viability that Roe v. Wade's decision hinged upon. It said whether you're for abortion or against abortion, set that aside for a moment. There is no right within the Constitution to take away from the states their authority in the democratic process to prohibit abortion. Except there are. Literally, the opinion was based on, what was it, Amendment 9? The opinion was based on the constitutionality of it. Let me see if I'm right here. Yes, no, they're saying the 9th Amendment here says that all rights not listed in the Constitution belong to the people, not the government. The rights of people are not limited to just the rights in the Constitution. Okay, then I may need to read more on this. Regardless, during Roe v. Wade, it was considered to be constitutional. The 14th Amendment is the one that talks about your right to privacy. That would be the point in the Constitution that we actually care about. Okay, there we go. We found it. It wasn't 9. In addition to trigger laws, 9 states still have abortion bans on the books that were enacted before Roe v. Wade. 4 trigger law states, along with, of course, Alabama, could choose to immediately begin that enforcement. 4 other states, including, of course, Georgia, passed heartbeat laws in recent years that ban abortion after cardiac activity is detectable, which can be as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy. All 4 laws are currently blocked by courts, but injunctions could be lifted if the Supreme Court overturns Roe. Here's where we sit right now. The specifics on what's going on with the oral arguments on the Supreme Court will have to be another conversation and another video. This is about what Roe is, what the end results of it being taken away are, and what one of the biggest mainstream information outlets for conservatives and the right wing is talking about to convince more people to do this, that this is a good idea, preying on the Christian majority of the United States for the purposes of their agenda. Make no mistake, this isn't a good thing. And I was talking about a thing earlier about, I think people should make it very inconvenient for anybody working on the courts. Yes, this is going up on YouTube. People should make it very convenient for anybody working in courts at all that try to ban abortion after this point, even if Roe v. Wade gets overturned. Because you know what's more inconvenient than you not being able to make it to work on time one day because of a protest? Fucking pregnancy. Anyways, we'll be talking more about the oral arguments that have been given in front of the Supreme Court in another episode. Right now, this has been the topic of this particular episode. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. This is one of those issues that is very, very close to my heart. This is one of those things that gets me very upset very quickly. But let's go ahead. Hand everything off to you guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always, everybody, if you want to support the channel and what I do, please check the description below. There's links to Patreon. There's links to other ways you can support the show down there. And also, as always, everyone, insert in the video tagline here.